So then what's next?
What's next is the doctor comes in and this is kind of like the funny part, like it wasn't funny at the time, but we laugh about it a lot now. I equate it to, when you're a kid and you're bad in school, they always told you, hey, this is going on your permanent record. Well, it turns out your permanent record is just your medical record. And so the doctor came in and he's like, Nick, we're going to admit you into the hospital. You're a paraplegic and we don't know why. And we're going to start treating you for all these things. Well, at that point I started to cry. Then my wife started to cry. And so on the write-up from that day, the doctor describes me as an anxious and somewhat weepy middle-aged man. And that's that's in my medical record.
Nick Kiesow.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Good story that you have, and so I'm glad that you decided to share it. And that you're with Fairway. You're a loan officer with Fairway.
Yes. Yep.
So everybody take note of that. Send your business your way. That's good. So you have this intriguing story, this thing you went through and are still going through.
Right.
Yeah. And just thinking about starting that, talking with Jeff Boom a little bit about that. And that Friday, is that the place to start? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably the place to start.
How things went there.
Yeah. It was, it was October 14th, 2022. Okay. So about, a year and a half ago, thereabouts. And I had kind of a sore back from the night before, sitting at our daughter's volleyball game, and went to the chiropractor that Friday morning just for a normal checkup, which is something I had did on a regular basis. Went through that, 10-minute appointment, on my way off to work. And as the day progressed, we went to lunch as a group that day. And I remember leaving lunch that day. I went to, and I was walking to the car, and I remember texting my wife, like, God, I feel all out of sorts today. I just didn't feel right. And later on that afternoon, my right leg had really gone to sleep during the day. And I tried getting up, walking around the office, doing whatever I could just to try to, that was the feeling I had. And I just couldn't get it to act normally again. So I just told my wife, I'm like, I'm going home. And it was about 3:00. I got home and I called back to the chiropractor and just kind of told them, hey, I'm experiencing something I never had before. And they asked me to come back down. And so I drove back downtown and they did some electronic stimulation on my lower back just to see if that, if that would loosen whatever is going on. Mm-hmm. And we did that treatment, and they said, why don't you come back tomorrow morning? We're open at 10:00. And sounds good. So I went home and functioned normally, was walking up and down the stairs, still had this feeling in my right leg that was not there. It just didn't, kind of like dragging it along almost, but I could still kind of move it. Like I said, do stairs. And when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't move from my right hip down to my toes. So we went down to the chiropractor at like 10:00, my wife and I, and like we left the house. We told our kids, like, hey, we'll see it. We'll be home at lunch, right? We just thought this was a pinch nerve, something. We're just going to get knocked out, and we'll be home by lunchtime. And so we get down to the chiropractor again. And at this point, I'm walking basically with her on my right side and using her as a crutch to get into the building. And they put me on a table and did a handful of things. And they're like, you need to go, you need to go see someone else. You need to go to OI. They have a walk-in clinic on Saturdays. Why don't you get over there? Something else is going on. We don't know what it is. Just head that direction. We'll call ahead. So we go over to OI. They had called ahead. So by the time we got there, they knew that I was coming, and they're like, well, let's do some x-rays. Let's see what's going on. And I explained to him, I didn't play tackle football growing up. I've never been to a car accident. Like, I've never broken a bone. Like, there's nothing wrong. But we did x-rays, and I could barely stand in this standing frame x-ray they had. It was a real challenge. And of course, x-rays came back negative. And the PA that was there that day did, an evaluation of me and saw that I had nothing in my right leg. And my left leg was still normal. I thought it was normal. I mean, I don't think the strength was 100% there. Mm-hmm. And he had told us that, you need an MRI. We don't have the capabilities to give that to you until Monday morning. So go home, and if it gets worse, then go to the ER. And so I asked the question, I'm like, well, what happens? What's worse? Define worse. He goes, well, like if you lose control of your bowels, then that's worse. I'm like, oh, so I can't walk and I lost control of my bowels. That's fantastic. That's way worse, actually. And so he stepped out of the room to make a couple calls, and my wife and I are like, we're not going to deal with that. ER for Avera is literally 2 blocks away from OI. And he comes back in and he tells us, he's like, you know what? I had a change of thought. You should just go right to the ER. I'm like, fantastic. Thank you for doing that. He's like, we're going to call ahead. And so we head over to ER. And, before when we left OI, and I remember I'm in a wheelchair at this point to get in and out of that building. And I was wearing shorts, and I remember when we're in the lobby, and the nurses are looking at me and like, best of luck. And everybody's kind of just standing there. And I remember touching my legs, my thighs, just kind of like that. And when I touched them, everything was tingly. My thighs were all tingly. And and I made a comment. I'm like, oh, that's really weird. I've never experienced that before. Both my legs were really tingly. Didn't really think anything of it other than we're going to go to the ER and we'll get this figured out. And so we get over to the ER. Of course, they called ahead. So they knew what was going on. And they told us it'd be, about an hour and a half before you can get into the MRI machine. So we sat in a little room waiting for that to occur. And I go back for the MRI. And they did a couple different sections. And so I was in there for probably about an hour plus, in the MRI machine. And I remember laying in there and not being able to move my left leg now while I'm laying in that MRI tube, and I couldn't move my left leg. And so we get out of the tube, I get back down to the room, and my wife's there, and I'm like, I can't move my left leg now. So she goes out to find the doctor. He comes in. They start doing a variety of tests, and things kind of, spiraled from there. And they brought in a neurologist, and all these things just started to get pretty chaotic in the room at that point.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I keep trying to put myself in that position and what goes through your head. Other than it's just got to be scary.
It was, but we didn't know anything. Yeah. And so we didn't know what to be afraid of other than, hey, things aren't moving. Like, they'll get this figured out. Like, we're in the right spot. The neurologist we're going to get the neurologist that's on call. And, these ER rooms have just a curtain. And so I could hear this guy's voice before I could see him, and I recognized him. I knew who it was. We've known this gentleman Dr. Rossing for 20 plus years, and he's brilliant. And I'm like, perfect. We're going to get this figured out. So, so that was pretty, that was really reassuring. And so like we weren't scared or afraid at that point, right? Because we just thought we have the smartest people here and it's going to be fine.
We'll get this figured out. So that MRI, what did they find there? So
that MRI didn't necessarily reveal the whole story or really anything at that point. So we're in the room, and the doctors are there and the neurologist is there, and the results of the MRI don't show that I have a problem on my spinal cord at this point. So they're treating me with IV medication for stroke, autoimmune, or a virus, because they don't know what it is. So I have that medication going in, and while this is happening, they know that my left leg is no longer working, but it was a couple hours ago when I first got in there. And so they're starting to do a variety of tests on me, with like a tuning fork, a vibrating tuning fork that they'll then touch on my foot and leg. Can you feel the vibration? Yes, I can. All right, close your eyes. I'm going to take a toe. I'm going to bend it a direction. You tell me what toe and what direction, and I could tell all of that. I could sense all of it, and I could feel everything that was going on, but I just simply couldn't move. And so while this is all happening, and they do other tests too, a sharp and a dull test where they basically take a pin and they'll just start pricking you.
Yeah.
And then they'll rub a cotton swab, and you can tell the difference between those touches.
That sensation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. They started at the toes and worked their way up, and I couldn't tell whether it was a pinprick or a cotton swab until it got up to, further north on my body. And then I could tell the difference. And while all of this is going on, I remember touching like my stomach at one point, and I had the same tingling sensation that I had in my legs a few hours before. And I'm like, oh, this is not great.
Where's this going to stop?
Exactly. And so and I've really lost track of time at this point. But it felt like we were doing this for a couple hours of just constantly checking where I could feel and where I couldn't feel. And at one point they just took a big Sharpie and just drew a big line on my chest. And that was the spot that they were going to continue to check and make sure it didn't move off of that. And once that had really stabilized, then they knew it wasn't moving anymore.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
then what's next?
What's next is the doctor comes in, and this is kind of like the funny part, like it wasn't funny at the time, but we laugh about it a lot now. I equate it to, when you're a kid and you're bad in school, they always told you, hey, this is going on your permanent record. Well, it turns out your permanent record is just your medical record. And so the doctor came in and he's like, Nick, we're going to admit you into the hospital. You're a paraplegic and we don't know why. And we're going to start treating you for all these things. Well, at that point I started to cry. Then my wife started to cry. And so on the write-up from that day, the doctor describes me as an anxious and somewhat weepy middle-aged man. And that's that's in my medical record. And so I'm like, oh man, that really didn't do me any favors. So it's funny to go back and read now, but at the time, that was the first time my wife and I showed any emotion on the day. But that was kind of like, hey man, we don't know what's going on. We're going to figure it out by process of elimination. Here's what we're already treating you for. You're going into the hospital and we're just going to start our tests. And so I got admitted into a hospital room at Avera. And that night they took 38 vials of blood from my arm and started doing blood tests. And at like 6 o'clock Sunday morning, they came to get me for a spinal tap. And then I had another MRI that Sunday, and doing all of these tests, and some of the tests, the spinal test in particular, took weeks to get back. Same with some of the blood work. And so while we're there and trying to figure out what's going on, all of these tests, we're just waiting for the results to come back, and all of them came back negative. And then they retested again, and all of them came back negative again. And we're a month plus down the road, and we get the diagnosis that it's a spinal cord stroke.
So explain that, because I've never even heard of that. Is it a blood clot?
Basically, yeah. It was a blood clot on the front chest side of my spine, which I've learned and have been told that is the reason why I can still feel sensation and touch, but I can't feel pain or temperature. So I couldn't tell the pinpricks and all of that. And they also did, ran cold, a piece of metal under cold water and would touch it to my skin, and I couldn't tell whether it was cold or warm.
Yeah.
And that was part of that as well. So that's where that stroke occurred, was on the front side. And in everything that we've been, researching and again been told, of all the strokes that occur in your body, they occur in the spinal cord less than 1% of the time. So it's a super rare thing. But on the flip side, you have about a little over 40% chance of making a 100% recovery from that. Whereas if we had a autoimmune disease or a virus or something, it may be something that we would have to battle for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Where here, we have the feeling that we can return to walking again and doing all the things and activities that I did before.
Yeah, so there's a shot.
There's a shot.
And then versus the other side of the spine.
Right. Where I believe, from my understanding, then I wouldn't have, the touch sensation and the different feelings that I do have, from my understanding. Could be way wrong.
Yeah, no shot at recovery.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It's just a different sensation that you would then feel.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then, where do you go from there?
Well, you
have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Finally.
And the nice part about, while all these testings were taking place and waiting for results, we spent a week in the main hospital. And by that, we got admitted on Saturday night. By that Friday afternoon, we were discharged from the main hospital and put into the inpatient rehab at Avera. And so we were able just to start rehab 3 hours a day in that facility while testing was taking place, or retesting was taking place, and waiting for results. So even though they didn't know what was going on, we still got to get after it and start rehabbing and try to improve that way.
Mm-hmm. And what's all involved with rehab?
Well, a lot of it is, everything. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So, I had my stroke occurred at T6, which is basically just below the tip of your sternum in your chest. So from that point downward, I could not move at all. And so, or control any of the muscles. And the first time I transferred, this was in the main hospital, they did some rehab there before going to the more intensive inpatient rehab setup. The first time I transferred from the hospital bed to a wheelchair, I could not stay upright. I didn't have the ability in my core to stay upright. It was two adult males, PTs, were holding me while I was trying to transfer myself to this wheelchair. And so rehab really was starting on trying to sit up, trying to roll over, trying to do things. kind of like a baby. You gotta crawl. You gotta do all these things before you can walk. And that's really kind of ground up how they treat you at rehab and developing those core muscles and then crawling and then eventually walking.
Yeah. Wow. I'm still hung up on anxious and weepy.
I know.
Come on.
I know. It was a bad situation. It makes us laugh. And the problem is not the problem.
Well, good for you, but that assessment, I don't know who wouldn't be.
I know. The funny part is like now, like every time we've gone to all these different facilities for rehab or, they always want, hey, send us your medical records. So the one I have to send is from the day that, everything was going down. And so that's the description of me. So I'm sure they're like, okay, here comes Hot Mess Express coming in here.
Oh no. So your rehab journey at this point, and where does it go from there? So you're sitting up. You're obviously sitting up here.
Yeah, sitting up here. Right. Walked in here with 2 canes, but it's taken a lot of hours to get there.
Yeah.
We were in the hospital from including the week stint in the regular hospital and my inpatient rehab stint for 53 days. And so the time at inpatient rehab, we were doing therapy 3 hours a day. We get out of there and I started rehab at Avera's outpatient facility the very next day. And this was December 7th, the day I started there. But I have a full allotment of PT visits for the year that I haven't touched because I was in an inpatient situation, and that's a different insurance scheme. Now I'm at outpatient and I have 40 visits to burn in the last 3 weeks of December. And so we did rehab every single day, a couple hours a day, everything we could to maximize the amount of visits we had. And then when the year flipped over, we then started to try to, balance out how many we have to make it last as long as possible. And then we've also coincided by trips to Colorado, to Denver, to rehab at a couple different facilities out there. Craig Hospital, which is a spinal cord institute and traumatic brain injury institute. Mm-hmm. And then Barrois, which is a gym, but they do a neurological regeneration or reengineering. And so we go out to Colorado and we can pack in 4 hours a day of rehab out there. And then when we come back here, we can use our PT visits to then still maintain and build on what we do there, and vice versa. It all works very, very well together, what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So that rehab, we had talked a little bit about that, and I could relate to my injury on my face, and nerves have to find a new path, basically, right?
That's right.
So they're slowly, through your work, creating a new path down to your legs. And
yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And yeah, and
that just comes through working it.
Repetitive activities. And,
gotcha.
The frustrating, and this was told to me all along by, every physician that we saw, you can't put a cast on your nerves and let them heal like a broken bone, so it's a very frustrating and slow build to get everything functioning and communicating again. And so really it's kind of a top-down communication thing that we're trying to work on. And the way we sit right now, or really how it all started to come back when we left the inpatient rehab facility. The only movement I had was in my right leg, and I could kick it out below my knee about 6 inches. Mm-hmm. And so that was all that I had gained back in the month and a half or 50 days that we were there, which was pretty cool. Like we were celebrating that. We've learned to really appreciate like all these small gains. And so now we get into the outpatient rehab and we're crawling around. We're doing all these different core activities to try to, gain stability there, try to build, ability with crawling, my hip flexor to be able to drive your knee up to take a step. It's the same motion when you're crawling or as if you're standing up and walking. And so those types of repetitive motions and activities it's monotonous. It's often boring.
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's the only way out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When just looking at you, looks like muscle's still there.
Right. Yeah. I haven't experienced any atrophy with anything. But I guess I attribute that to the rehab work that we do. At Barowis, they take a little bit different philosophy than, hospital setting where, they look to load you with weight. And so we do a lot of weighted squats, one-legged squats, things like that, where, in a hospital setting, they try to take weight off, to help, make it easier to walk and move. Both of them work for us and it works out great, but that has helped, I think, being able to not lose any muscle in my legs. Because I think that would just make all of what we're trying to accomplish that much more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think that seeing that nerves firing as you're sitting here.
Yep.
And I understand that was that's under a lot more control.
It's under, a lot more control. And my right leg is jumping a little bit right now. Sometimes it's my left. Most often it's my left, just because my right leg is stronger and I can kind of combat it a little bit. But before I had, this type of control, they weren't severe by any stretch of the imagination, but they were constant and it was somewhat annoying, sitting at work and it's banging under your desk, and you can't control it. But
so when that rehab thing, I don't know, just that intrigues me, that in what that process might look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other things were they doing for you?
We do a lot of different things, and things adapt. Once you do something well, then they take it away from you basically, and they make it harder. So you then, fail and get better and continue to move.
Readjust the bar.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we do, a lot of times, like for example, when I'm at Barowis in Colorado, we'll do a lot of hip activities, hamstring activities, just kind of as a warm up, just all these just repetitive motions over and over again, just to simulate things, exaggerate some of the motions that you make when you're taking a step. And then from there, we'll go do one-legged squats on a shuttle or just on a regular squat rack. And then once you're good and tired, then you'll go for a long walk. Mm-hmm. And then you'll do that a couple times. Then you'll come back and do another exercise to tire you out. And then you go on another long walk. And oftentimes with these trips to, Denver with, Craig and Barowis, they, working out 4 hours a day, you don't see a lot of the gains immediately. It all happens, in the weeks upon your return, because you're not as fatigued, but you've already worked out when you're fatigued. So now walking in and out of your house or the office or a coffee shop is a lot easier. And you have the confidence to do so because you know that you've done way harder things under different circumstances than just simply going in and doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we met a week or so ago, and coffee shop.
Yeah.
And you were already there, and we got to talking, and saw your canes there, and I could see the leg firing occasionally, and at one point I had to say, "How'd you get here?" Because I didn't know
right. Yeah.
Where you were at, and so you're driving without hand controls.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. We my OT and PT agreed here that you probably could drive. My right leg is strong enough on its own, And so there's an adaptive driving class at Sanford, and they wrote it up and said, we want to try it leg only first. And then if we have to, gradually work in hand controls because it's not functioning, then we'll do that. So there was basically a written exam. Felt like I was getting my driver's license for the first time. Yeah. It was a written exam, and then we hop in a car with, the brake on the other side too. And we drove around town for about a half an hour, and I was able to pass with my leg alone. And that was probably 7 months, 6-7 months after the injury or the incident. And so it was nice. It was nice to get that back.
That's huge.
Yeah. You don't feel like a burden, just having to get a ride everywhere and all the things that goes along with that. So that was a big game changer for me.
Huge independence. So you're driving out to Denver.
Yeah.
And you're doing that on your own.
I do. My wife comes, the ability to walk and carry things. I still haven't learned that skill. So to load a car with a suitcase and things like that, that's a little bit of a challenge. But in terms of like driving all the way, I love driving. And so I drive the entire time. And it works out great. I could probably make the trip on my own. I could figure it out. You kind of learn that you can just do it, just how it is. But I'm fine not doing that too.
Yeah. Well, some of that just wrapped my head around. That what had to be going through your mind when they say you're paraplegic now. So matter of fact,
that was pretty intense. But knowing that we had a way to possibly get out. We're very, very lucky. We've had a lot of friends that have reached out and provided information, contacts, just in trying to figure out what's going on. And all of it, none of it, is what I had, but we learned a lot that the fact that it was a stroke is probably not that bad. and we have a way to rehab out of it. And so our sole goal has been just rehab as much as possible, as fast as possible, to make sure that we get it all back.
Yeah. How's your work been working with you?
They've been unbelievable.
Really good.
Yeah, they've been unbelievable. Not only just the local people, Jeff and Troy and everybody here allowing me to go and do what we need to do away from here. That's been incredible. I mean, COVID was kind of a game changer where everybody can now work from home and work on their phones. And so you don't need to be in the office anymore, which has been a nice thing. But just the company in general, Fairway, I mean, they've granted me more PT visits last year and this year. And so they've been pretty incredible. So let's face it, like I only get 40. I think the plan is you get 40 PT visits a year. I'm not going to learn to walk in 40 hours, spread out through a year. And so, we're very lucky that we got more and that, we're able to do what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Another reason to use Fairway.
Yeah.
Give you a call.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. And I understand our mutual friend Jeff had set up a GoFundMe. Is that something that's still accessible to people? Is it?
No.
That's not.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, that was cool of him to do that.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was very kind. We've been very, very blessed with our family and friends. And yeah, we're very lucky people.
Yeah, good. So, and you have kids, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about the kids.
Yeah, we got a sophomore, daughter Lillian, sophomore, and son Henry's freshman. And so, and it's not been easy on them, of course.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How does that look? How they handle that?
Mostly by
Throughout.
making fun of me. When I say, yeah, I'm going to go run to the store, they're like, yeah, you're not running anywhere, actually.
You ain't running nowhere.
Yeah. So that's how they handle it, which is a wonderful way that I encourage, actually.
Good.
It's been good. You know, my wife had to address, you know, all the hard stuff initially because I was in the hospital. But it thrust into, you know, our daughter driving. You know, she was just 14 at the time, and you know, as soon as she could drive on her own, it's like, well, yeah, you're going to have to, because we need a second driver in the house. You know, you guys have activities, and you know, my wife Carrie can't be everywhere at once, and so it's everybody kind of had to step up and mature up and do all the things, and it's been pretty awesome.
And they did. Good. That's cool. Yeah, I think, well, a couple times now talking to you, your attitude just lends to this situation so well. I mean, like I say, the whole time I first heard about your story, I think about where I'd be and how I would be handling that. And, you know, weepy and anxious might be the least of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, we have a path out, right? The path out is rehab. And so we're not afraid to put in the work, and we're doing it.
Yeah, that's a game changer for attitude, for sure.
And
there's hope.
Yeah, there's hope, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, that 40% number, you know, always floats around in my brain, you know, get 100% back. Well, what if I only got 80% back? Great. Then I can't run. Who wants to run anyway, right? You know, I don't want to do that. And so it's all fine because we can rehab out of it. And if you ask any of my PTs, I complain all the time. Yeah, they make me do really hard things, and I complain all the time. They laugh, and then we just do it together, and then it's over. So it's my attitude. Yeah, it might be great, but they hear a lot of the complaints.
Yeah, they see the other side.
Exactly.
Right. Wow. It's an awesome story. It's so cool to see you drive up and
yeah,
get out and make your way in, and it's amazing.
I don't feel like we're done. I certainly don't feel like we've plateaued at all. And every, you know, all my PTs, whether it's, you know, in Sioux Falls or Colorado, you know, every time I see them, we're doing things that I wasn't doing a month ago, 2 months ago. So I'm still making gains, which that also helps the attitude. You know, we're not stuck in one spot here anymore. We're still ascending. So
absolutely. Well, you don't see that all the time. You don't see it short term.
Yeah.
But that's probably got to be the reality check when you go in and they say, hey, you weren't doing that last time.
Exactly.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm doing better. And my silly little injury where I lost the feeling in this whole side of my face. And so that's why I understood the nerves finding a new path. And that was years where it just got smaller and smaller. And I could remember then when it was down to like the size of a quarter. So, yeah, you're doing that same recovery, but just on a big level.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll happen. Get that golf swing back at some point. I've heard about. Heard you were a pretty good golfer, so.
I know. Well, we'll see. We'll see if we get it back. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
I got a lot of people chomping at the bit to take me on the first round back, but
yeah, right.
I don't have the heart to tell them that I could probably beat him when I was in a wheelchair, but that's fine.
Just do it.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's good. Like all the, you know, the different like rehabs, like with the core and everything, like I can have control and I can make muscles fire and stuff that I could never do, like I said, 6 months ago. So, you know, just realizing those types of gains and different things has been good and encouraging.
Wow, it's an awesome story. Glad you came in and shared it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck on the path you're on. You're on the right path.
We're trying. It's definitely, it's not going to be because of lack of effort. So we're doing it.
It's forced me to suck up my little obstacles, move forward. So it's an inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
I'd like to do an update at some point.
Okay.
You up for that?
I am up for that.
Cool
Yeah.
deal.
Sounds good.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's go. Yo, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes. Pieces is a form of art. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's fast.